On this week's episode of the Three Rural White Guys podcast, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We'll discuss the importance of Democrats running for local offices like city council and school boards, plus the latest headlines, Kellen's Blue Dot Quiz, and it's 2025. How is it that rural towns like Mount Pleasant, Iowa have never had a woman candidate for mayor on the ballot? Welcome to the Three Rural White Guys podcast. My name is Mike Heaton. As always, I'm here with Jacob Dodds and Kellen Gracie. And joining us in the studio today is Kasey Conrad, rural business owner, founder of Surviving Womanhood, and candidate for mayor, who later in the show is going to talk to us about the importance of people stepping up to run in municipal, school board, and countywide elections. Welcome, Kasey.
Hello.
It's great to have you here. Also today with us is Delaney Dixon, assistant director and soon to be co-executive director of the DVIP RVAP programs, Domestic Violence Intervention Program, Rape Victims Advocacy Program. Did I get that right? Or close to it?
You're close. We'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Okay. It's a long thing, but October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're happy to have you here with us today to talk about domestic violence, or especially in rural communities. Before we do that, we are going to go to our headlines. So, Kasey Conrad.
Yes.
On Wednesday, October 15th, an airline industry group urged Congress to end the blank immediately, citing safety risks from understaffed air traffic control and TSA operations.
Well, as the wife of an air traffic controller,
Whoa, seriously?
I'm going to say the government shutdown.
That is correct. Ding, ding, ding. I need like a button when they get it correct. Like that, you know.
I don't think that was a fair question.
Is it too easy?
She's got inside information.
Oh, that's true. So American Airlines, Airlines for America, I guess, is an association of some kind. They warned that with 13,000 controllers and 50,000 TSA workers receiving partial or no pay, the risk to aviation safety is rising sharply.
And a lot of them are calling in sick.
Oh, wow.
Can you tell us where your spouse works?
I can tell you where he worked. He's retired now.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Hey, even better.
Houston,
Oh, wow.
Cleveland,
Big
Albuquerque,
airports. Yeah.
All over the place.
Afghanistan,
Wow.
Abu Dhabi.
Wow. That's
Big airports.
So it's not the Eastern Iowa airport.
No.
Landed 3 planes a day.
Right.
Or the Southeast Iowa Burlington Regional Airport. It's with one plane a day.
Pleasant.
Yeah. Or Mount Pleasant with our crop dusters. Yeah. Let's go with Kellen.
Hi.
On October 11th,
Mm-hmm.
President Trump ordered the blank to use all available funds so that U.S. troops would still be paid even amid the funding lapse.
Ordered blank?
Ordered
Jeez.
the blank. It's a department.
Oh, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense.
Yes.
Well,
That's
Department of War.
I mean, legally, the Department of Defense,
Right.
propaganda-wise, the Department of War.
DBA.
Yes, yes, yeah. yes. The move directs the Pentagon to tap into prior year research and development funds to cover military paychecks due October 15th, bypassing the shutdown gridlock.
Yeah, Wednesday. They don't get a paycheck unless they being service members. Yeah.
Wednesday being
Like today.
Oh yeah,
Today.
Today.
No, I was like,
a
that's
paycheck.
now.
Yeah, that's
right now.
Right now.
Yes, today is Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah. Today they should have gotten a paycheck, so I don't know if they did or not.
Wow.
I don't know.
I can't imagine right now. I have a friend that's a federal worker, and they're on furlough, and it's just everything's up in the air.
Yeah.
Just up in the air. Let's go with would you like D or Delaney?
D.
D. In a ruling on October 15th, a federal judge blocked planned layoffs for more than 4,100 workers during the government shutdown, citing potential blank. This is the hardest one, by the way.
Yeah,
Have the hardest one.
The hardest question.
I did. I gave you the hardest question.
So
Get it.
So reality is, I have no idea.
No. You have any guesses at all?
Citing safety issues.
Ooh, I like that.
That's
I
a
like
really
that.
good guess.
Really, it's sort of related to that.
It is.
Citing potential political motive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the judge actually called out like the Trump administration for doing this with political motive.
Got it.
So you don't see that very often.
No, you don't. I would not. That would not have been my first guess. Obviously, it wasn't. It wasn't my first guess. But I think that judge is playing the long game.
I think you're right. Judge Susan Ilston issued a temporary restraining order pausing the administration's downsizing of federal employees across multiple agencies, citing potential political motive.
Probably because Trump himself said that.
Yes.
That he was going to go after Democratic-leaning employees first.
Quite literally.
But did he mean that figuratively or did he mean that literally?
No, I think he meant that literally. I'll give MAGA credit. He says what he means and means what he says.
If you can understand what the hell he's talking about at this point. All right, Jacob Dodds. This week, farmers and traders said they were flying blind because the blank stopped publishing critical corn and soy data amid the funding lapse.
The Department of Agriculture.
That is correct. The USDA. Well done. Softball after the last one I gave you, D. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm the new guy on the table.
Fair enough. The shutdown suspended export sales reports and crop estimates, leaving producers uncertain about yields, pricings, and international deals. So this shutdown is really having a massive impact on a lot of people's lives, from actual employees to everyday people in the field, literally.
I have something to say about that.
Yeah.
That I think is outrageous. One of many. But the Congress is not back in session. They've been on holiday now for over a month, and they are still getting paid. And we have air traffic controllers and TSA agents and a number of other federal workers who are mandatorily having to go to work and not get paid. There's something drastically wrong with that.
Obscene would be the word.
Obscene.
For sure.
That's nicer words than we usually use around here.
I was telling Dee earlier that we cussed a little bit. And she's like, I can give it back, right? I'm like, yes, absolutely. You absolutely can. Let's talk about October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're really fortunate to have Dee here today. You just gave a presentation to a room full of Henry County folks.
I did.
Can you sort of tell us what that was about? What's your job about? What awareness are we spreading that we should be aware of, especially as 3 rural white men?
Right. 3 rural white men. So just for the record, I am not either rural or white or a man.
And there's only one of you.
Yes.
So this is me jumping outside of what would be considered my comfort zone to make sure this message gets across, right? So this is really important. And I think it's important to everyone. It's not only a message to women, it's a message to women and men and everybody in between. That Domestic Violence Awareness Month, that's what we're talking about with October, is about recognizing this silent pandemic of our own within this culture that we don't talk about and we haven't talked about historically, which is the allowance of violence against somebody that's in it to win it with you, right? Like, so you're it for me, and I'm giving you my all. I'm telling you my all. I'm my most vulnerable with this individual. And that person, instead of saying, I'm in it with you too, and I give you my trust and my heart, they say, I'm going to take advantage of that. I am going to utilize that against you. And I'm going to use what I know of you and what I know of your vulnerabilities and your strengths and control you, and do it sometimes in a very violent way. And as a society, we've turned our back on that. So Domestic Violence Awareness, sorry, that's hard to say. Domestic Violence Awareness Month, or DVAM, that's what we call it, is about bringing that back into the light and giving voice back to victim survivors to say, yep, this happens. It happens a lot. Statistically, 1 in 4. Statistically, 1 in 4 young people will experience some type of dating violence by the time they get to high school. Statistically, 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence as well. Statistically, 1 in 15 people who are transgender will experience violence, and statistically 1 in 8, I believe, men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. That's a lot of people. Yeah. So the idea that this doesn't exist or is not true. The idea is that we're ignoring it, and that people who are experiencing this trauma need to have a place to talk about it and need to have resources and people that will support them.
So tell us a little bit about your organization and what it does.
So Domestic Violence Intervention Program and Rape Victim Advocacy Program, or DVIP and RVAP, is what we say. Obviously, I've said it a lot because I could say that real quick. I don't know if I could say it 3 times in a row, though. Is an organization as a collective that has been around for 50 years. In our organization, we cover 8 different southeastern counties, and I have to list them off on my hand. So Lee, Van Buren, Des Moines, Henry, which is where we are right now.
Washington,
Johnson,
Iowa.
You're messing me up.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Johnson, Washington, Cedar, and Iowa.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I was like, I got them all.
Yeah.
So we cover those 8 counties. We are one program out of multiple programs that cover Iowa as a whole. So there are 6 regions in Iowa, and we are considered Region 6. And so different regions have a different number of counties in it, but different programs serve those counties. And it is our responsibility to make sure that we are responding to victim survivors of both domestic violence and sexual assault. We have a 24-hour hotline, 24/7, 365. I work the hotline on a regular basis on Christmas Day. I've done that for 26 years.
Wow.
That's how I spend the holiday. And so our job is to be able to connect and to help find resources and to help safety plan and to provide sheltering when possible.
So you work in that 8-county region. And that 8-county region includes what I would consider an urban area in Iowa City, but it also includes some really rural parts of the state, like Van Buren. Are there unique challenges to operating in either of those, the urban versus rural settings that's unique to one versus the other?
So that's a question on our interviews.
Oh, nice.
For interview candidates. So everyone who wants to work at DVIP, RVAP, listen up.
So I have my resume with me.
So yeah, absolutely. There are some unique challenges. I think we talked about some of them today during the event that was here at the Bell Center, right? I'm saying that right? Mm-hmm. And one of them is privacy and confidentiality, right? So you live in a small town, everybody knows each other, a lot of people grew up with each other, and they know or they think they know the dynamic of what goes behind closed doors, but still have the idea that what goes on behind closed doors is a private matter. What that ultimately does, puts the burden on the victim survivor, because now they feel isolated, but they also feel exposed.
Yeah.
Both at the same time. And so that generally is a more unique challenge to work in a rural community, because reaching out for help is much more difficult. And not being judged by what you do is really, really difficult. So you're kind of damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If your partner is someone who gives to the community, who is considered a good guy, that makes it even more difficult to be able to reach out for help and try to get support from people, because people kind of have to take sides, and they don't want to have to take sides. And so we get into a space of a lot of victim blaming, right, or disparaging of people's character. And that makes it harder for people to reach out to get help, versus in urban settings. And if you're talking about Iowa City, specifically in terms of city settings, and I would say city settings and not urban settings,
sure,
is that there's an anonymity to being in a dense population, but at the same time, the people who know you, and you are dealing with similar situations in terms of like your work group or your friendship group or your social group. So in that way, we respond very similarly to supporting someone. And ultimately, it's that we are free and we are confidential. So, and we are victim centered. So we will not do anything that a victim doesn't want us to do. So if you come to DVIP, RVAP, or you call us, you call the shots in terms of who we speak to and who we don't speak to, or what we pursue and what we don't pursue. We don't tell people that they have to call the police. We don't tell people that they have to get no contact order or a protection order. Our response is, how can we meet you where you are? And then how can we support you in that space? And a lot of times it's pulling the pieces together of who they consider safe and the spaces that they consider safe, and saying, okay, let's move forward with that. But it's a long and winding process, very much like the Beatles song, "The Long and Winding Road," right?
Yeah.
So, but we as a society outside really want things to be linear. We want you're in or you're out, right? But that's not how it works. And on average, it takes a person 7 times to be able to leave someone. So it's, so this is not a simple process, and it's not a process that victim survivors should ever be judged for in terms of how long it takes them, or if they never leave at all. They should not be judged on that.
That's good.
I'm sure you guys have some questions, so I just wanted to point out, because it's sticking out to me right now. We talk about how important those community ties are, especially along the lines of political messaging, right, and how you speak to a community. But that same kind of shared sense of community also has its bad sides too. Right. And I think that she's speaking a little bit, Dee's speaking a little bit to that here.
Yeah, I think so too. So when I first met you out in the parking lot as I was coming in.
Yeah, when I was like, oh, dude.
Like, why is this guy walking up to my. Yep.
Lock the door. Yeah.
He was just rolled into town, empty parking lot. And I'm just like walking up to the window and I'm like, hi. I'm sorry. I did not put you in a very good space.
Nope,
there.
you're okay.
But that said, you were kind enough to roll your window down a little bit and talk to me, which I appreciated. I knew who you were. I just wanted to introduce myself. And, but
just so you know, I had an open phone line while you were talking to me. So,
smart.
So if you had snatched me, someone would have known right away. Right away.
Nice. One of the things we talked about, or I mentioned just real quick, just because you told me who you're with and everything, and I had heard the second part of the acronym, RVAP.
Yes.
And I had learned about that way back in 1998 when I was in college at the University of Iowa.
Yes.
A really good friend of mine drugged me to a meeting not so dissimilar to what you presented tonight. And I went unwillingly. They said, if you want to hang out with me, you got to do this. And I'm like,
I like it.
Okay, I guess I do.
Standards.
Yeah, seriously. And I was, from rural Iowa. We don't talk about this as much as we should. And especially back in the 90s, we didn't talk about it as much as we should. And I had no idea what I was going into. And it was all new information to me. But I mentioned to you in that parking lot that it was the first time I'd ever heard the term ally.
Right.
And they literally pointed me out in the room and were like, you're going to be an ally. You're going to be aware now. And I don't think that's so dissimilar from how we're being attacked for being quote unquote woke in general in society. When they describe woke to me, I hear ally. We're aware of what the heck is going on. We're not hiding it under not by not talking about all these things in society, and we're willing to come out and speak against it, speak out about it, educate people about it, give the floor to other people to educate about it, and using that privilege that we have to do that, and as white men in rural America. And my friend just hammered that into me way back in 1998, and I just looked around the room tonight, and I'm just like, this is what it's all about. This is what we're supposed to be doing. This is, I just sat back and let you do your thing. But like that room, they were all learning about this stuff and being more open about it in a rural setting. And it was brilliant. Kasey, thank you for bringing Dee here to do that.
Of course, my pleasure.
Engage in that conversation.
This is my passion, bringing women together and advocating for them and putting them together with people who can advocate for them when they can't advocate for themselves.
I would also say, though, because it was awesome. That's my word. Awesome.
Awesome.
And the event was awesome because clearly it was needed. There was a space that was needed, and we were able to speak to people who needed to hear it. But there was also empty seats where I'm like, but those people maybe who need to hear it weren't there because they didn't see it as being for them. And that this message is for everyone. And it is not just for those who are victim survivors, but those who love victim survivors or support victim survivors, right? Those allies. So you do not have to be affected by domestic violence or sexual assault directly for this to be something that matters to you and for you to learn how to talk about it, right? So you would be considered brave to talk to me about this as rural white guys, but you shouldn't be. Right? It shouldn't be about you being brave. It should be about humanity, and it's about violence isn't okay for anyone, right? And so particularly the insidiousness of violence against someone who you claim to love or who's raising your children. So the move is to fill those seats, not just with people and women, but also men, right? Like who this has harmed directly, right. But with every single person, this affects every single person. And to have that message of care, of support, and of really, and I don't mind saying it, condemnation of violence against a person, yes, that's where it's at. That's where we want to be.
I think it was really interesting and not surprising at all when I asked how many people here know someone who has been a victim of domestic violence. Every single person in the room raised their hand. Every single person. Yeah. So that speaks to your point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Jacob, do you have anything? That was a beautiful wrap up, and I might splice yours back in.
How do I follow up with that?
Yeah, seriously.
Come on, bro. You got a beer in your hand.
I mean, I guess the
snappy comeback.
I'm a data person, right? So
what data do you need for me to move that needle?
Well, so what I'm curious about is as we've seen things here in just the last decade shift socioeconomically here in Southeast Iowa. Has this become more of a problem as there's job losses and changes in the economy and there's more struggles and things like that?
So here's what I will say. I think there's of course there's a level of issue with poverty, and people being frustrated and not having resources and scarcity of resources, and then that resulting in a more volatile environment. But that also covers up those rich dudes who hurt their wives. Right? Or the people who are politically influential or have a position in the community who their families are in terror. And so I don't want to say it's about the social economic downslide within rural communities that create domestic violence. That would be incorrect. What it is about is the dynamic of power and control, and the idea that you have the right to control another individual by fear and by harm. And so it affects everyone. So even if you're holding down that great job, there is still the distinct possibility that you could still be a perpetrator. Even though you are a person who is at the top of your game in your industry, it's still a possibility that you could be a victim.
So, similar to that question, when I was bringing you into the studio earlier, I had a little bit of, I don't know if it was shame or just worriedness, as in you walked into our studio. We don't shy away from our alcohol-related paraphernalia here, and there's a documented association, let's say, between beer and alcohol and domestic violence. You hear about upticks, like you said, during holidays and during the Super Bowl. Sort of throwing it out there because we're trying to be more responsible this season.
Sure.
We literally had sound effects of that we'd hit, and we don't want to glorify alcohol the way it has been and how it is in society. We like a good beer every once in a while, but we also want to respect that it actually has consequences as well that are in association with bad things. So
beer
I'm curious to your thoughts.
Beer doesn't make you a perpetrator. Right? Like drinking a beer doesn't make you a perpetrator. What alcohol does is lower your inhibitions, right? So you were going to hit that person anyway, and now this beer is giving you permission to do so.
Gotcha.
Right? But who you are innately in terms of power and control, that will exist whether you're sober or you've been drinking, but it can escalate the violence that occurs because now you don't care, right. about the consequence because you're inebriated. But it doesn't stop the abuse. Like if you stop drinking, it doesn't mean that abuse stops. It means it looks different.
That makes sense. That makes good sense. Thank you for elaborating on that because it's always been you hear that in society and people just blame the alcohol, but you're saying it's more innate than that.
Well, I'm saying in society we blame everything on everybody but the thing.
Right.
Right. So for domestic violence, the blame here is power and control, that individual who wants power and control. And we live in a society that believes that along gender lines that power and control is deserved to certain people, right? So I'm supposed to be the head of the household. That idea and that concept of that then reinforces this toxic masculinity and this idea that if you're not the head of the household, or if you are in a more equitable relationship, that somehow you're less than.
Right.
And so there is a pushback in that regard in terms of more traditional gender roles, and with that comes violence, and that's wrong. That's inappropriate. So.
Right. That's a brilliant take. We talk about that a lot on the show, actually, like that hyper masculinity, that toxic masculinity that causes more problems than it does good.
Yes.
And having an equitable relationship with your partner is more mature. It's more wise. It's more human. And the better way to do it. And a lot of us weren't raised that way, unfortunately, and it's taken some adjustments in education. And I feel like this has been a good opportunity to learn on why it's not a good way to.
So I love this. I mean, I love your concept, right? Because it is about not just teaching young girls to be better young girls, more brave and more strong, and to speak out. It's about teaching everybody respect for each other and how to engage one another, and boundaries and healthy boundaries. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't want my son to be a victim of domestic violence either.
Right. Brilliant. Any final thoughts from either of you on that topic? We're going to take a little break here in a second and then come back and have a conversation about running for municipal offices. But Kasey, do you have any thoughts?
I would just like to say thank you to Dee and reiterate a couple of things that she brought up here. And I think that this last piece about the toxic masculinity is something that is being escalated. And, you know, we all can look at events of the not too distant past, right? Murders and whatnot of folks that sort of tout that power and that hyper masculinity. And that is something that's being emulated by younger men, because it's coming from a place of fear of losing that power, that status place. And I think that that's very important to recognize as well, because I think that also creates that whole atmosphere of fear, creates that need for men to be in more control, because they feel like they're losing control, or they're being taught that they're losing control.
Right.
And that is one way that they can bring themselves back to going back to that, I'm going to air quote this, traditional roles of men and women. So I think that's a really wonderful point to make.
Thank you for that. You articulated it much better than I did. Well done.
Well, and thank you both for articulating it way better than the three of us could ever articulate it. So we really
Well, you are three rural white guys.
Exactly. Well, Dee, thank you for joining us today, helping educate us, helping educate our listeners about domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so all of our listeners, go learn more. Go to other, if you want to go to educational events and so on, you can learn more. Just Google it. But if you're in Iowa, you can go to, I believe it's dvipiowa.org, and learn more, spread awareness. And when we come back from our quick break, we are going to talk with Kasey about the importance of running for rural seats, rural offices, rural elections. And we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the Three Rural White Guys podcast. My name is Mike Heaton, here with Jacob Dodds and Kellen Gracie. Our guest today with DVIP is Delaney Dixon. And helping us round out the second half of our show today is Kasey Conrad. Kasey, I don't even know where to start in terms of the many hats that you wear here in rural Iowa and Henry County. And I'm going to go with chair of the Henry County Democratic Party.
Okay.
Is that okay? That's a biggie. Also a small business owner here in Henry County, and as well as candidate for city mayor.
Yes, which is an unaffiliated party line there.
Right.
So
right? There's no partisan politics, no R or D next to the name on the ballots during municipal elections.
Yes, but I am the first name on the ballot. I voted today. I am the first name
nice.
on the ballot, so
they flipped it. They Conrad over the other. Yeah,
exactly. I was a little bit surprised, but very, very pleased.
nice. That's awesome.
I got my sign in my yard.
Yep.
Yeah, all you guys have my signs.
Dang
Thank
right.
you very much. I really appreciate the support.
So before we get into municipal elections and the importance of getting people candidates to run, especially in rural communities, we have a tradition here called Kellen's Blue Dot Quiz. You guys have heard the phrase blue dot. I'm assuming you have, Casey, because
I have
we've
one
been
in
living
my
it.
yard, and I have some in my car if anybody wants one.
Nice. Are you familiar with blue dot at all?
I don't know.
D? So basically, if you look at an electoral map, we all know
Oh
population
yes,
and density.
I
things
am.
like
I
that.
am familiar with it.
Yep. You have Iowa City. That's this nice little blue dot in the middle
Yes.
of red state, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
even more pronounced in rural communities where you have these little blue dots that you can't even see. Really,
Understood,
On most
yep.
maps, right? So, Kellen, take it. Your blue dot quiz away. It's similar to the first one we did. We'll see how we do.
Michael.
Yes. Oh man, I have to go first.
In Iowa's statewide violence survey, roughly what % of Iowans reported knowing someone who had been abused, either physically, verbally, or emotionally? 30, 50, or 70%?
I got the multiple choice. Thank you. I have to go 70 because I know it's more than that if they actually admit it to.
70.
Yeah. Cool.
Jacob,
Yes.
which of these is not one of the 8 counties served by DVIP and RVAP in Iowa? Is it?
That's priceless.
Is it Johnson, Cedar, or Polk?
Polk.
There you go.
Oh, you guys you could have gone like with Powashik or something and.
Michael.
I wanted that question.
Yes, it's all us. We're like, it's like to see if we listened well enough
were you
earlier.
taking notes and paying attention?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
What is one documented disadvantage of domestic violence support in rural settings versus urban per comparative studies? Is it a lower prevalence, or B, more isolation and less access to services, or C, more legal recourse?
I would say B.
You're right. B, more isolation, less access to services.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it. We were just told B, basically. Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend I knew that.
Did you know that?
Yeah, but yeah. My wife's a social worker. She's getting her PhD in social work, so she's taught me a lot over the years.
So she comes home and she's like, "Look,
Yeah, exactly.
let me
yeah.
break this down."
Or when she listens to our episodes, like, you got that wrong. You need to go back on and correct
Like-
yourself. Yeah.
Jacob, in Iowa's Safe at Home program, which we didn't talk about today, so I'm going to throw you a hard one. What service is offered to survivors of domestic violence and related harms? A, free legal counsel for 10 years. B, substitute address mail forwarding to keep their real address confidential. Or C, lifetime relocation funding.
You're gonna get this right.
I'm getting a lifeline from a friend. B.
Yes.
Let's pick B and win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how does that work? How does that happen?
One of the barriers for victim survivors is their mail still goes back to where the perpetrator is, back to home, or they don't have an address because they are in a transient period because they had to leave their home. So the state has a program in which they can apply, and they are assigned a new address that they can use, and that address that can also be used so that they can vote, because you have to have an address in order to be able to vote. So it's registered with the state. The state knows. So it's not false. But people are able to protect themselves, protect their safety, protect their safe documents, and still participate as citizens of our state.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea. That's
I get
awesome.
the feeling like there's a lot of things you didn't know.
There's a lot.
So where's your wife?
Yeah. she literally used to do the overnight shifts at a domestic violence shelter.
Oh, which one?
Is in Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it was.
I'm just saying I need to talk to her.
Oh, yeah. Seriously, she would enjoy a conversation.
That would be awesome.
She does work up in Iowa City though, so maybe you guys can chat sometime.
Or she can volunteer.
Oh no. She may. That's awesome. Awesome. Any more?
That's all I got for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love how you threw them all at us as a test.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
There'll be a quiz every Wednesday night.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Kellen, for your Blue Dot quiz. We appreciate it. Kasey Conrad, chair of the Henry County Democratic Party, as well as current mayoral candidate for Mount Pleasant, Iowa. we want to talk to you about a couple things.
Okay.
One, and first is the importance of municipal elections, and then the second is really to talk deeply about what it's like to run in a rural community, and those pieces of that, because that's where our listeners are mostly from.
Right.
So can you share a little bit about, especially from your chair hat of the county, trying to find people to run for offices, what it's like, or why we need to even think about it? What's the importance of running for local offices?
Well, first of all, local elections are the most important elections in the country, because the people who vote in the local elections are literally voting for their lifestyle, things that are going to go on in their life, their benefits, right? Their roads, are their sidewalks going to be, are they going to have sidewalks? You know, things like that. How are their kids' schools going to be run? And, you know, so one of the things that I encourage people, I actually just had an op-ed in the newspaper about this, importance of local elections. How we vote in local elections makes a difference as to the candidates that we end up grooming or selecting to then go into our state house and then into Congress and Senate and even president, right, at some point. But it all starts locally. And when we vote locally, our votes are so heavily weighted, because especially when we just have, like we're having now, just a city and school board election in an off year, the voter turnout is so low, which is really disappointing, because they are the most important elections. But the voter turnout is so low that elections can be won by just a few votes, sometimes even just one vote. There was an election not too long ago that was one vote different. And sometimes there are even ties, and in some charters, it's just flip a coin.
Right.
And whomever wins is now the elected official. So again, it's so very important to vote, because your vote, your one vote, your voice is so much more empowered when you vote in a local election. And how often have we heard people say, my vote doesn't matter. You know, my one vote doesn't matter. But I am stressing this. Your vote in local elections matters much more than you could ever realize. The last election here for mayor, there were very few people on the ballot. There was one candidate almost for every single office that was open. And we have around 4,500 registered voters in Mount Pleasant. Only approximately 721 people came out to vote.
That's it.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the reasons I'm actually running for mayor is to inspire people to come out to vote. It's very important to me that we can at least double that. I have a goal of at least 2,000 people voting in this election coming up. And it started today. But to go back to your question about finding people to run for office, and the party people, you know, we have been looking for candidates for a lot, city council, because we have city council open, school board, mayor, because this was not in my purview.
Was it on your bingo card?
It was not on my bingo card to run for mayor of Mount Pleasant, but I'm really happy I'm doing it now. I'm very excited about it, but trying to find people, and one reason is that whole blue dot issue. People are discouraged, and we talk to people, and I've even had people say to me, well, you can run, but you're going to be a sacrificial lamb, because nobody ever wins here that isn't already in office or that doesn't lean right, you know? So, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. I believe that's the story that people are telling themselves. because it makes it easier to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't have a chance in hell of winning. But the more we do that, the less chance we have of winning, right? Of switching things around. So, and I'm going to, anybody who's listening out there, we have a lot of important offices coming open in the county and in the state coming up in 2026. Give it a thought. Give it a thought, because really, you don't need extra special superpowers to run for an office. You just need to have dedication, you need to have love of your community, and you need to have a little bit of stamina.
Yeah.
Well, and the great Canadian Wayne Gretzky once said,
The great one.
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right, Mike?
Right.
That's the third time I was able to use that today.
Really? You've used it on the show before, too, whenever you can.
Mm-hmm.
Kellen's a Canadian. He was born in Canada.
Was he the first one to say that?
Yes.
About a hockey puck, at least.
I was like, that is not true.
I have no idea.
When the best one says it.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Kellen, I am curious on that. We talked about, Kasey mentioned chances of winning and how people sort of downplay the chances of winning for those elections. You are a political science guy, right? You've studied the data. Do you see not only that data reflect what she's describing, but have you ever studied the sociological factor of if people don't believe they can win, then they can't win?
Yeah, actually, that last piece, the competitiveness of a race is actually something I spent a lot of time studying and just published a book chapter on. We looked at it like a team sport. So we were looking at NFL fans and the likelihood of them attending or watching a game relative to how close the game was in terms of their perceived closeness, right? They thought it was a close game, yes or no, versus how close it actually was or ended up being, right? And we had pre and post. So we had the Vegas odds as a proxy for what the bettors thought the game was supposed to look like in terms of a blowout win one way or the other before the game started. And then we had people we surveyed and talked to. And then we had the actual results, right, of the game. And if you think about an election the same way, you have a similar set of data points, right? You have before the game, you're surveying people, you have the actual results.
what the polls are saying versus what actually happens, right? Yeah.
And across the board, it's very much the same psychology or sociology in that respect. In that when it's perceived to be a close game, people are much more likely to participate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this mayoral race is going to be super close.
I believe so. It's going to be very close, and I'm going to win.
Love it.
But I can give you some data that backs up what you're saying a bit. It's a little skewed, but in the election in 2021, the mayoral election, 1,029 people voted. And there was an opponent. I don't think he did a lot of campaigning, but there was an opponent. So when there was an opponent, 1,000, there were 300 plus more people who actually came out to vote because there was an opponent. And for me, I have been beating the streets, right? And I'm meeting some wonderful people. And I believe we are going to have a more inspired vote this time round. So having someone out there that is actually speaking to people and knocking on doors and making calls and having signs in all of these wonderful people's yards, so it's much more visible. People are really jazzed. People are excited. I have somebody drive by my house yesterday, and I was outside playing with my dog, and they yelled out the window, "Thank you so much. I'm going to vote for you."
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so awesome. And, and now I am so energized by the energy that people are sharing with me that the optimism is growing. Right. So I think exactly what you're saying is true, and I keep telling everybody I'm going to win. So,
Yeah, but not by a blowout margin. Tell everybody it's going to be a really close election.
No, I don't say
So
that.
tight,
but
so
yes.
tight. They gotta show
It's
up.
going to be so
They
close.
gotta show up.
It's going to be just 2 or 3 votes away, so that
That's
means
right.
you have to vote.
You are the swing vote.
Yes, you are the
Yes.
swing vote.
I love it. I love it. Jacob, we talked earlier about, or Kasey mentioned the importance of local elections. You've worked in government services for a long time, and whether or not it's a supervisor election at the local level, basically these votes matter to funding for local services, especially EMS services, things like that. Can you describe and give sort of the importance outside of like it just does your vote matter, but actually a little more in depth of how it matters?
Well, I think to kind of build on what Kasey said, in the sense that you end up with people that get in there and then they never leave, and there's that belief that, oh well, there's no point in voting or there's no point in running because you're not going to win anyway. Once they're in, they're in, and at the end of the day. To also build on what you said earlier about how important local elections are, is so many of the issues facing especially rural communities are largely because of the fact that we have these, and I call it the good old boy system, these politicians that have just been entrenched in local politics for so long that they have completely lost touch of what they're supposed to be doing there.
100%. I 100% agree with that. And I think that there is, just on its face, I am the first woman to ever run for mayor in Mount Pleasant.
Seriously?
In its history.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Wow.
It's 2025.
Wow.
Bingo. And I'm the first woman. This is an historic election, no matter what the outcome. But when you think about that, when I first learned that, I was gobsmacked. I couldn't, I had to keep checking it, and I couldn't believe it, but it's true. And our city has been in a steady decline for at least a decade, and it started even a little bit before then. So over the past 5 years, we're 12% loss of population, and it's on a steady downturn of 3% per annum.
Right.
So that in itself is a frightening number, because that was happening before Wesleyan closed, and it's continued. So now it's 2 years on since Wesleyan closed, and we're still bleeding people. So it wasn't because of that, right? Wesleyan was an anchor that shored up some cracks in the system that weren't evident. And so now those things are more glaring, and they need to be addressed. And bringing in more entrepreneurial enterprises and welcoming them, opening up. We have a great city. We have we have Amtrak stops here, right? We have some really cool museums. We have parks. We could be a destination for folks.
Right.
And it wouldn't take that much to spread that word. We could be a destination for remote workers, because it's a beautiful place where now we have all the fiber optics mostly in, right? We have the fiber optics for people who work from home, and those are generally people in that mid-age range where they're, young adults with children. And we have our schools, we're losing kids out of school. But to bring these people in to shore up our economy, to work at our stores and to shop, around and use our park facilities and just start to build our community back.
So you're saying it starts with that vote for that local person, because
Very nicely done.
So in order to change the decline, to change the stream of where it's going, you've got to participate.
You've got to participate, and it's time for some fresh ideas. Not to say that whatever they're doing is bad or wrong. It's just old and tired.
And for example, the perfect example of what you guys just described is I sat in a school board meeting on Monday night, and it was a very hard meeting. They certified enrollment. We lost 50 kids this year compared to what we had in the school system. Now, for those of you who don't know, or listeners, Iowa distributes funding based on enrollment. And so we're talking anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 per kid. If you round up on that for easy math, that's 50 kids at $10,000 a kid. That's a lot of money we just lost. That's a lot of teachers who just lost their jobs, basically.
And federal money is also based on how many kids you have in the seats.
Right. And that goes from the local decisions we make and why we don't have an OB at our hospital, why all these different decisions our local elected officials have made that have made it so families don't want to live here. And then on top of that, it goes to our next year's elections with our state representatives and senators who vote to not provide funding for and increase that amount to our desperate rural schools that
They
need
cut it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
They cut the funding.
Well, they'll tell you they raised it, but then what they do is they don't actually keep up with inflation. So it's a cut regardless.
cut.
Yeah, they just try to pretend it's not.
It's definitely a cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have just lost so many services, the OB services, mental health services. We had a mental health hospital here that closed, I think, was it 2015. If we didn't have Great River shoring up the hospital now, and that's kind of a dodgy proposition at best, we wouldn't even have a hospital here.
Right. And now on the federal level, they just slashed and burned Medicaid, so that's going to have a massive impact as well on our hospital system, every level. And right back to it, to say it one more time, I'm not going to try to make you say something, but like our local votes matter.
Local elections, yeah, for sure.
Right.
And here's another thing going back to the local elections. Farmers, a friend of mine who's actually running for city council in Fairfield, is all in the farm union, and they had a convention in Washington D.C. not so long ago, and because farmers are basically sole proprietors, so they don't have health care from an employer. They have their own private health care. And most of them with children, their kids use CHIP for their health care. Though a lot of those farmers were all for this big, beautiful bill, right, that a lot of our local elected officials were all behind. And until they realized that CHIP was part of Medicaid, because they hadn't realized that before. And it was already too late because now Farm Bureau and stuff all backed it, and now the local farmers are backing it, and now they figured out their kids are going to lose some of their health care.
And that program is known by different names in different states too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. So
I'm going to wrap us up on that note because this is something we've seen a lot in our social media feeds. We'll point that out. Obviously, a lot of our listeners are rural. A lot of them are farmers. A lot are in ag. Some are like in niche markets, organic, that kind of stuff. Others are large-scale corporate ag, right? We'll put that out there because we know that our listeners, they need to understand that
Right.
This is hurting us. The tariffs are hurting us, that kind of stuff. And every single time we do, where we think of it as a PSA, like these are our friends who literally live down the street from us or down the road, gravel road in this case, we get so much hate toward them in the comment section. And it is so aggravating because I want to tell my Democrat friends, guys, they understand now. I know this has been hard. I know their ignorance on Trump and everything they're doing has been harmful. Mm-hmm. But we have an opportunity. Mm-hmm. This is a real opportunity. And if we keep hating, we live in community in rural. We are about our neighbors. We are about our friends. And if you start attacking our friends, I've said in this podcast many times, my brother and I don't get along at all. But if someone swings at him, I'm swinging back, right? Because he's my brother. And we feel the same way about our community. And it is so disheartening to see people just hammer our farmers. It's got what they deserve, fuck around and find out, all that stuff.
The truth of the matter is no one can afford to have that position. We're in a world that we need to make positive change, and in order to make positive change, everyone has to participate. And so regardless of the choices or the decisions that you made previously, we need to be there for each other to move forward in a direction where we're all healthy, we're all supported, and we're all able to look at the next generation and see a future for them. right? So it's not about partisan lines. It's not about what you did before. It's about what we do now.
And one of the things that I am so adamant about is listening, because everyone's voice matters. And it doesn't matter to me, what your background is. I want to listen to you. You can teach me something. And when I do become mayor, one of the things that I am planning to do is hold a quarterly, I think we've talked about this, right? Hold a quarterly town hall to invite everybody, all the citizens, to come and talk to me about what are their concerns, what is it that they're needing, and what are some things that they actually like about what's going on. Because when everybody can get in a room and start to talk to each other, they see their concerns are similar. They are not nearly as different as they are being taught that they are, right? And so then we can start to mend the community. And when our community works together, everybody's stronger and everybody benefits.
Thank you both. Seriously, this has been, we're just relaunching this podcast after a pretty significant quiet time, I guess, over the summer. And I don't think we could have asked for two better guests to kick us back off. So thank you so much for being part of this tonight, or tomorrow, whenever people listen to this, I guess. But we hope to have you both on again sometime in the future.
Thank you so
That'd
much.
be great. Thank you. And thank you so much. I want to say thank you to the Bell Center. Thank you to Dee. Thank you all for having us. But thank you for co-hosting this wonderful event, this Women's Wellness Summit. And I hope we can do more of them because it was quite impactful.
So my thing is awesome. So I would just want to say you're awesome. This was fun. I had a great time. Thank you.
Love it. This has been an episode of the Three Rural White Guys podcast. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to all the folks online and social media. And yes, we missed you guys too. A huge shout out to Chris Housman, our artist, our featured artist that is providing us with our theme song this year called Up and Down. You may remember Chris. He provided us our theme song for our very first season with his hit Blue Neck. You can find Chris on tour or just listen to him wherever you get your music, and we'll let him play us out now.
National math scores are slipping, but we're better than ever at division. No, something about this isn't adding up. Every day is a new battle, trying to keep our ass in the saddle. Now they're rounding us up like cattle in a truck. They're high up on that horse, we're down here fighting wars. They give to the rich, take from the poor, makes you wonder what we're working for. They've got us all turned around. I realize the real divide ain't left and right, it's up and down. We're out here pinching pennies, they can wipe their ass with the 20. Tell me what's it like to have plenty, I don't know. The billionaire's got a mega yacht, the single mom's got a second job. Whatever bullshit this is,